We're going to all pay the price for this in 1 or 2 or 3 years. This is the next time we have problems in the economy, which will be not too long. We don't have any bullets left.
Welcome back. You're watching Talk Asia. Our special guest today is Jim Rogers. Do you ever sort of pinch yourself that a boy from Alabama, in a town so small, I think the family telephone number was number 5, that you became a king of Wall Street, you became an author, a best-selling author, an inveterate globetrotter, and a very wealthy man along the way? Did you ever imagine it would end up like this?
Anyway, I still consider myself just a simple person from Alabama. I don't think about all those other things you talked about. I don't have much use for money. I don't own a car. My wife owns a car now. You know, I've never owned more than one house. I mean, I never owned an airplane. I don't really have much use for money. I just like having fun. These days, I'd rather do nothing more than just play with my daughter. I mean, I'm a simple person.
Hey, let's talk about your early days. You're a history major from Yale. You went to Oxford University from there. You took politics, economics and philosophy, a small stint in the military, and then to Wall Street. The Wall Street doesn't quite fit into that picture. Why Wall Street?
My passion has always been, my excess has always been the world and what's going on in the world. And suddenly I found a place that would pay me, and pay me a lot of money, if I could just tell and figure out what was going to happen in the world and what was going to happen in the future. I couldn't believe it. They wouldn't have had to pay me. I would have done it for free.
1973. You're 30 years old, you start co-managing a fund with another colleague called George Soros. Over the next 10 years, the quantum fund goes up 4,200% or so. You both become legends, I guess, in Wall Street. Why do you think both of you managed to get it so right so often?
Well, I mean, we worked very, very hard. We were both very intense and passionate about what we were doing. We loved it. We both had an international approach at a time when most didn't.
Do you remember how much money you made during those years, personally?
I made enough to retire, I know that. Looking back on it, it was not a whole lot of money in today's standards, but in those days, for a poor boy from Alabama who didn't really need a lot of money, it was plenty for me to stop. The idea that you can solve a problem of too much debt and too much consumption, with more consumption and more debt, I mean, it defies belief. I just cannot believe that grown-ups would stand there and say that to yahoo.com.
You're saying it's very wrong for policymakers to continue to borrow money to fuel consumption. What should they be doing at this point? Because they'll say we have to spend our way out of the recession, as President Obama said.
Which is, as I say, laughable on its face. I mean, Mr. Obama, you know, Mr. Obama 6 years ago was a community organizer. I mean, he didn't know much about all this. He's listening to what his people are telling him. I don't think he's the one making the mistakes. It's the people around him. He doesn't know any better. They don't know what they're doing. They're causing problems for all of us. And the way you solve problems like this is what's happened throughout history. When people go bankrupt, you let them go bankrupt. And then competent people come in, take over the assets, reorganize, and you start over. It happened in Scandinavia at the early 90s. They boomed after 3 or 4 years of horrible pain. South Korea, Russia, Mexico, I mean, the list goes on and on throughout history. The countries that take the pain and reorganize and start over have always come out and done much, much, much better.
So we seem to be following the path of Japan, right?
Yeah, we're doing the Japanese model. Like in the early 1920s, America went through a period just like this. Everybody suffered very badly. Nobody was bailed out. And then we had a huge, the 20s, you must have heard of the Roaring 20s, we had a fabulous time.
Right.
The politicians always look for somebody to blame when things go wrong. Do you think the politicians stand up and say, boy, we've really messed up. We're going to resign. Oh, please.
Right.
They blame it on other people. They always have, and they always will. And usually the regulations will make it worse. Now, you remember that the problems that have come out here in the last 2 years came from industries that are unbelievably regulated. Banking, insurance, mortgages. Now, that's where all the problems came from. They're all terribly, terribly regulated. You didn't have problems coming out of the unregulated parts of the world economy. You had them coming out of the regulated parts of the world economy. So now are they going to make the regulations even tougher? It's not the regulations, it's the regulators. They don't know what they're doing, and they didn't do what they were supposed to. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these problems right now.
Longer term, you're still worried about deficits. You're still worried about the debt that this country has, right? I mean, you think
gigantic spending in Washington, incompetence in Washington, where they don't know what's going on. They're making our situation worse. I see nothing to turn the dollar around. Maria, the Federal Reserve has tripled its balance sheet, full of garbage, which you and I are going to have to pay for, and everybody watching this show. They have gone out and printed gigantic amounts of money. Why do we want the Fed? They're making the situation disastrous for all of us. We're going to all pay the price for this in 1 or 2 or 3 years. This is the next time we have problems in the economy, which will be not too long. We don't have any bullets left. We've shot everything we have to solve our problems. What are they going to do? Quadruple the debt again? Print more money? We don't have any trees left. Well, Maria, we're going to have more currency turmoil. We're going to have currency crisis or semi-crisis. You already see Vietnam devalued last week. Brazil put on special taxes for currencies. You're seeing what's happening in Dubai. Greece is in trouble. Ukraine, Argentina. There are plenty of people that we can put to the list. Spain, Ireland. No, we're going to have currency turmoils. We're going to have more debt problems. And in the meantime, all everybody's done is printed money. And then what are they going to do when these problems really start giving us great turmoil?
the sovereign debt fears really are growing. S&P put Spain on debt, debt negative watch. Fitch cut its rating on Greek sovereign debt.
But listen, they put the U.S. on debt watch. They put the U.K. on debt. We all are in serious trouble. And, I mean, in Asia, they're still creditors. In the West, unfortunately, we're debtors.
Where do you think is the most important place to avoid right now? I mean, is it the stock market? Or is it
United States bond market.
U.S.
long-term government bond market. That's the next bubble. Why? I mean, would you lend money to the United States government for 30 years at 4% or 5% in U.S. dollars? Oh, Maria.
This is such a great way and such a simple way to put it, Jim.
Well,